Good afternoon. I'm Earl Weener, a member of the National Transportation Safety Board. The intent of this briefing is to give you an update on what we have determined on the on-scene investigation and where it currently stands. As we said yesterday, the investigators are arranged in teams and all focus on different parts of the investigation. The original teams include motor carrier operations, vehicle factors, highway, rail mechanical, rail operations, rail signals, highway survival factors, and human performance. Based on the investigation to date, we've added 2 more teams, fire and rail survival factors. One of the original teams has completed their on-scene part of the investigation, and that's the rail operations team. Let me start with the motor carrier operations team and start by correcting the name of the trucking company. I had said earlier it was the John Davis. It's the John Davies. Said it was Davies. It is correct to say it's John Davis, D-A-V-I-S. The John Davis Trucking Company, Battle Mountain, Nevada. We have met with the company representative in preparation for meeting on site with the company tomorrow. That meeting, we expect to obtain background information on the driver, employment records, health records that they may have, violation records that they may have, as well as to start gathering information on the operation of the trucking company itself. Earlier statements about a convoy of 3 truck-trailer combinations of this company, we have not been able to verify 3 operating in a convoy. We do, however, understand that approximately 3 vehicles back, there was another vehicle like this belonging to the same company, a tractor and 2 trailers. The trailer was 2 trailers together were a very long vehicle, so the company had permits that allowed them to operate overweight and over length. The company did have a single vehicle fatal accident in May of 2011, this year, and that may have triggered a compliance review. That accident was a single vehicle fatal accident. The vehicle factors team has been hard at work today in very in-depth examination of the parts. By way of some context, the tractor alone weighed 19,800 pounds, so just less than 20,000 pounds. The side dump trailers, the large one weighed just less than 17,000 pounds, and the smaller one weighed just slightly less than 12,000 pounds. The tractor still remains embedded in the side of the rail car, and we've given a go-ahead to remove that. The expectation is that we will find an electronic control module, engine control module underneath the engine. Hopefully some data can be retrieved off that. As I've said before, though, that was extensively fire damaged. We are working to understand the amount of fuel that were in the 2 saddle tanks. The tanks had a maximum capacity of 110 gallons each, so the maximum amount of fuel would be 220 gallons. As I said, we're trying to obtain fuel receipts or some information that lets us know how much fuel there were in those tanks. The highway team has been working with the Nevada Highway Patrol and the Department of Transportation to gain a better understanding of the traffic and speed conditions on that stretch of roadway, US 95. So we've asked for traffic counts and speed survey data for the grade crossing area. The highway team has also been participating with the rail signal team to understand what the distance, the sight distance available under the same kind of conditions. So tomorrow we expect to do a test from both passenger and truck vehicles to see how far back the signals, the railroad flashing signals, are visible. We have obtained the event data recorder and video recorder information, and interestingly, Amtrak's according to the Amtrak officials, whenever a train goes into emergency braking, it automatically triggers an upload of the video data and some performance data for a slice of time around the incident, and that's transmitted to the Amtrak Operations Center. Amtrak has provided us with that video snapshot, and the file contains about 2 minutes of color video from the forward-facing camera on the lead locomotive. Also includes audio from an external microphone. That video shows the weather to be clear, the visibility unrestricted, no sight obstructions in the area of the crossing, in other words, no trees, buildings, etc. along the railroad or highway. The horn and bell are in use prior to and through the crossing. The crossing gates are shown to be in a down position as the train approaches and passes. The train comes to a stop about 45 seconds after passing the crossing. We also received a more extensive subset of data, event recorder data from the Amtrak train. We're currently reviewing it and sending it off to laboratories in Washington, D.C. for more analysis. The rail operations team has conducted a number of interviews with train personnel, and at this point in time, they feel that their on-site, on-scene work has been completed. So they're returning to their duty stations. The signal team expects the Union Pacific signal bungalow to be rebuilt and tested by later today. That being the case, then normal rail operations will be restored. And as I said, they are also participating in the test for the sight distance of the rail signals. The Highway Survival Factors team is continuing to pursue witnesses, interviews, and plan to meet with emergency response agencies later this week. The Human Performance team is proceeding to obtain as much information on the company and driver as they can, including meetings with the company that's later this week, tomorrow to starting. They also have obtained information through the Highway Patrol about the driver's records, including some medical information. We do have a cell phone in possession now. We think it's the driver's cell phone based on where it was found in the debris field. That will be sent to Washington to see what information we can gather off the telephone. The two new teams, Railroad Survival Factors team and the fire team, have been working to examine the passenger cars involved in the fire, that being the car that was impacted by the tractor, the following car that was torn open by the trailer, and the third car that was heavily smoke damaged. They also are working with the other teams to coordinate the removal of the tractor from the passenger car. The fire team has begun conducting an in-depth inspection of the rail cars to understand what the causes of the fire and what fueled the fire and how the fire propagated, working closely with the Highway and Rail Survival Factors team. So as I said, the three rail cars are the focus of the investigation. As the various teams complete their on-scene activities, they're also starting to prepare their respective field reports. As of last night, the parties to the investigation include the Nevada Highway Patrol, the Nevada Department of Transportation, the Churchill County Sheriff's Department, the Federal Railroad Administration of the U.S. Department of Transportation, Amtrak, the Union Pacific Railroad, Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Trainmen, and United Transportation Union. The NTSB GO team appreciates all the support and from the local officials and the railroads. We expect we will still have investigators on scene for another 5 to 7 days. We expect to have a preliminary report available within 30 days of the accident. And let me reiterate, the NTSB will not be determining the cause or the probable cause on scene. We're here to determine the circumstances, what happened and why it happened. We expect probable cause determination to follow in approximately a year. I might note that this will be the final on-scene press briefing. Further information concerning the investigation as it progresses will be provided by the NTSB Public Affairs Office. Peter Knudsen will be the focal point for that information. So with that, I'd like to introduce Robert Acella and open for questions.
How many people are still unaccounted for?
That information needs to be obtained from the coroner's office or from Amtrak.
Do you have is it still at 6?
I said you'll have to go get that information from the local authorities.
So the video that was obtained when the Amtrak train hit its brakes and it said in the automated system, you said there's 2 minutes of color video, shows clear weather, no obstructions, and it showed that the crossing guard was down?
Yes.
It also showed the bell or the signal was, you could hear a sound from the bell or signal.
Could we hear the signal?
Yeah.
Yes. You could hear on the video, you could hear the signal, and you could see that the crossing gates were down. So from what we saw in the video, the signal devices were operating as they were supposed to.
Let's take a question from the conference bridge.
Our first call comes from Ralph Vardabedian. The line is open.
Thank you very much for taking my question. I think you had given the weights of each individual piece of that tandem truck, adding up to just under 40,000 pounds. Can you make any comment about how long the stopping distance for such a weighted vehicle would be? Have you got any information on that at all?
Let me ask Robert Acella to answer that question.
The question was, can you determine the stopping distance for that configuration of vehicle? At this time, we could not determine a stopping distance for that configuration of vehicle without knowing the braking efficiency of that vehicle. It's dependent upon the braking efficiency of the vehicle.
Let's take a question from the room.
If it's determined there's some kind of negligence here, perhaps on the part of the driver or the company, or depending on who's at fault here, is it possible that this could become an instance where there's some sort of charges looked at, and if so, what agency would file those?
The question is, if there are evidence of negligence, who becomes responsible for that? That would be turned over to the Nevada Highway Patrol. Again, our role in this is a safety investigation to establish the circumstances and determine a probable cause.
But it would be at least a year before you would perhaps refer that to the Highway Patrol?
No, the Highway Patrol can jump into this at any point.
And you said that the train applied the emergency brake. Do you know at what point that was? Was that before or after it had passed this crossing in train?
The question was, do we know at what location the train was put into emergency braking? According to the engineer and the preliminary information that we've been able to examine, the train was thrown into emergency braking after the locomotives had already passed the intersection of the crossing. So it was beyond the roadway.
Let's take a question from the conference bridge.
And our next question comes from Timothy Pratt. Your line is open.
Yes, thanks for taking my call. And I'm sorry I couldn't hear the first few questions, so forgive me if this has been answered. But as I understood, is it 5 people whose whereabouts are still unknown? Do we know anything about those people?
The question is, again, about the resolution of the manifest against the number of survivors or people after the accident. Again, that information has to come from the local authorities, particularly the Churchill County Medical Examiner and Sheriff's Department.
Justin from the room.
Thank you.
Is there anything you would look for on the driver's cell phone other than to determine whether he was using it at the time of the crash?
Is there anything we would be looking for besides is he using it? The answer is yes. If in many cases in the laboratory, we can download other information beyond just was he in fact using it. Was he preparing a text message? Was he using it for any other purposes? Referring to information on it. Once we have it in the laboratory, we have the capability of really examining the contents of the cell phone.
But the concept then is to figure out if it was a distraction, a potential factor in the crash.
That's right, to find out if it was a potential distraction in the crash. As I said yesterday, the NTSB has a focus on distracted driving, and cell phone is a major part of the distracted driving.
Let's take a question from the conference bridge.
I have no questions at this time.
Okay, back to the room.
With the number of passengers still unaccounted for, should there be a better system of some kind of database that tracks the passengers, who they are in a given train?
The question is, would it be useful to have a better way of tracking passengers on an Amtrak or a passenger train? The answer obviously is yes. In an airplane accident, we have much better records about who was on the airplane. In this particular case, those records are not available to the same quality. I believe that the board has had a recommendation for that for some time now.
Yeah, do you acknowledge of a 2005 report where I think there was an NTSB recommendation about some kind of a database system? What are your thoughts on the fact that that hasn't been put in place yet?
Do you want to answer the question, Robert?
The question was, based on the recommendation that the board has made in the past as far as being able to track passengers, I believe that industry is working towards technology that they may be able to do that, but I do not know that for a fact, so you may want to check with Amtrak and the industry. But I believe they are trying to take steps to do that.
One more question.
Does the video at any time, well, first, can we have the video, and B, does the video at any time show the truck?
The question is, can the video be distributed, and does the video show the truck? I haven't personally seen the video. I've been told that early parts of the video does show the truck, but the collision occurred after the locomotive passed the crossing. And as far as the video goes, you'd have to contact Amtrak.
Okay, thanks very much, folks.